What's up, everybody? Blaze over here at Blue Chip Athletic Club. We're going to talk a lot about some mental, emotional health today. One thing that I want to do as we kind of get into this chat is I want to bring to light that I'm not by any means a psychologist or a therapist. I'm just kind of speaking on my own personal experience and that I've learned from others. And I just hope that I can kind of help anybody who's struggling through any of the similar type of topics that I'm going to touch on today. But real quick, I kind of want to chat about this model of deep health that we try to embody here at Blue Chip Athletic Club. And for those of you that don't know, it's a term that I'm going to start using a lot more often. And it's something that I think is going to be really, really effective for us moving forward to kind of get a good understanding of where we are and where we want to be. And I want to thank Precision Nutrition for kind of laying out the mantra for us here as well. So basically, we're breaking down our health into a couple different facets. We've got physical, emotional, environmental, mental, existential, and social. Physical health being obviously what a lot of people would think like, hey, this program's about. So we do programming, you want to change your body, you want to improve your health and wellness overall, your cardiovascular endurance, kind of whatever those things are. But, outside of that, I would say that the other five components of health are arguably more important than that piece. And I want to kind of hit on some of those things and then talk about a couple of them in particular today. So emotional health is another one. It's about, expressing and experiencing a full range of emotions, making sure you're able to regulate them appropriately. We'll hit on this a little bit today. Environmental health is something that having an environment that supports your health and wellness overall. So that's like a supportive environment, for maybe your house is set up a certain way, you have a roof over your head, you live in a place where it makes you happy. So I would say somebody would have higher environmental health, at least for me personally, Blaze would, if I was living in Florida versus Alaska, because I'd see the sun more. And that's something that's important to me. So just something to kind of think about there. Mental health, we're going to chat about a lot today, but being, alert, focused, competent, learning, remembering, solving problems well. Existential health is another piece that I think is really, really undervalued and not really discussed. And it's about kind of like finding your purpose and finding your it factor that you have in life. So finding something that really drives you, makes you tick, selfishly, and actually not selfishly at all, I guess, but my existential purpose, I think, is doing stuff like this, helping people be better, helping people improve their health in a holistic way. So I feel very fortunate that I get to kind of share in that experience with you all as we kind of move through this program and then throughout in general in life. Next piece is going to be the social piece. So this is like feeling connected to others, feeling that feeling of being in a community and like you belong. I would say, and I hope that this community is something that you guys can kind of feel that in. And if not, please, the more you kind of lean into that, the more it kind of starts to feel more like a home and like a community that you want to be a part of. So today, like I said before and kind of alluded to, we're going to talk a lot about the emotional and the mental piece of this model as we kind of progress through those. And I want to break those down into a couple different, we'll call big categories, or the three S's, we can call it, whatever kind of catchy phrase you want to use. But the big three I want to talk about today are shame, shine, and I'll introduce what this is in a little bit, and then self-talk. So shame, I'll say shame is something that a lot of people know and do not love. This emotion is something that's proven to be one of, if not the worst emotions for your mental health that kind of exists. So what I want to ask is what does shame actually do to our brain chemistry? What it does is it actually activates pieces of your brain that have to do with pain, distress, and your amygdala as well, which increases your stress and anxiety. It fires off fight or flight responses in your body. Shame is something that we almost like create ourselves and then end up having this physiological reaction after the fact. So it's something that's really, really tough to combat and something that's really important to make sure that you have an understanding of what it's doing to your body, your mind, your mental health, kind of as you progress through a health and wellness journey, and then as well as just in general in your day-to-day life. So I want to talk about kind of examples of feeling shame. So for me personally, over the past couple of days, we had been traveling and on the road. This morning, I'll say I woke up and I had all intentions of waking up, moving around a little bit before we hopped in the car and on the road for 12 hours. And I missed that because our alarm didn't go off until we were supposed to be on the road a half hour beforehand. So needless to say, I missed my workout completely. And I missed my movement completely. I missed my whole morning routine. And it kind of left me with this impetus point where I could sit there and kind of go the shame route, and I can go the other route as well, which is kind of giving myself some grace. And I want to chat about if I go down this shame route because I overslept. What does it mean for your body? Well, you're missing a workout, you're putting yourself into that fight or flight response, and you're making your body physiologically feel the same as if you're being chased by that bear in that hypothetical scenario. So, what happens next? The brain chemistry basically changes, releases that stress hormone, cortisol. It can affect your overall brain function, mental health, and contributes to conditions like depression and anxiety. So that, created or facilitated emotion now creates a real depression and real anxiety that's going to end up affecting your health over time. So what to do to kind of break that cycle. This is where I kind of want to talk, like, shame is this kind of big animal, this big beast. And I think the first and most important piece is that you're focusing on addressing it and kind of hitting it head on. So if you acknowledge feeling ashamed, I think that's kind of step one. If you're trying to bury it, you're trying to hide it off in the back corner. Actually, there's a really, really good documentary called Stutz that talks a lot about this. It's on Jonah Hill's Therapist. Definitely recommend it to anybody else, but he talks about kind of like the shadow, and it's like your most shameful self that you have. Kind of, maybe it's like a photo of you from, 2 years ago where you were overweight on the beach. That was mine. Like I'm like, oh, hey, I want to like hide this person away and I don't want to address it. And I feel ashamed of this, the way that I looked, felt, the way that emotionally I was. Like I know all those things, but by harnessing and like kind of addressing that and giving it the time and space that it deserves, you're able to kind of improve upon all of these things by, facing your shadow, improving your self-talk and shine are kind of the next kind of pieces of that. So step one, we've kind of addressed and understood that we have this feeling of shame. And now step two is where we're going to try and break that cycle by improving our self-talk and what I call shine in that arena. And I'm going to kind of chat about those two moving forward. So let's talk about the one that we know, self-talk. So self-talk is simply the voice in your head. That voice can be either your biggest cheerleader, it can be your biggest critic. Most likely, a lot of us feel that biggest critic more often than the biggest cheerleader. I'm definitely privy to that. As somebody who is trying to work in this space as well, it's like, hey, you see the comparison game is real. Like other people are doing X, Y, or Z. You're like, hey, maybe I should look like this. I should move like this. I should feel like this, whatever kind of happens. And the voice in your shoulder telling you like you can't do something, or you're not going to make it, or you're, not good enough, whatever the kind of emotion feels. What I want to do is I kind of want to talk about how we can shift that around and then change that so that our internal thoughts become our external reality. So why is self-talk and belief kind of so important? And it's that exact point that I just said. Your internal words and thoughts really become that external reality that you have. So you start to notice things in your mind. And here's kind of like a real life example of how that translates to real life. So what I want you to do is I want you to just take a second in your room and I want you to kind of look around. I want you to count the number of things in your room that you see that are brown. So look around your room, wherever you're sitting, listening to this right now. You'll be like, hey, count, just keep that number kind of in your head. And I want you to close your eyes after you finish, and I'll give you a second or two. And I want to shout out Tony Robbins for this gem. So, all right, once you get it, close your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes. Now, tell me all the things in your room that were red. Cool. Now open your eyes and look around the room for stuff that's red, right? Now look around for anything that you can find that's red. Go ahead, check your room now. You just found things that are brown. Now you're looking for things that are red. So now I'm going to ask you, did you find more things that are red after you were looking for it? Or did you find, when you were looking for brown that you found brown, when you're looking for red, you found red? It's because you're looking for it. Now, what I want you to do is ask yourself now the question, did you notice something that was, beige or maroon and called it brown or red for any specific reason? Did you think did you count it twice? Did you count it once? What's happening is your mind is taking a situation and distorting your interpretation of reality to kind of fit the mold that you want. So if you wanted to count more brown, if you wanted to count more red, that's what ended up occurring in your mind to kind of fit that mold. So think about this now to a world of internal and external thoughts, right? So internal thoughts to become an external reality. If you're thinking all the time that you can, achieve X, Y, or Z goal that you have set out, or have this amount of money, be debt free, work hard to accomplish X, Y, or Z, that's going to be the reality that you end up living. But if you're searching for a reason to fail, if you're searching for a reason to not achieve, that is going to come to fruition, and you're going to have that actually happen in your reality. So what I want you to do is think of this as if you think you're screwed up, you can never do this, whatever your internal negative belief or self-talk is, you're just not going to be able to do it. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy of, if you think it, that's kind of what's going to occur. I know this is hard to hear. Welcome to the club. I've struggled with the self-talk and shame feeling for years. And personally, that came from me from feelings of or an upbringing of tough love, which is, you're not trying hard enough, you should have gotten first, whatever that kind of ends up happening. I'm sure there's plenty of you guys that have shared a similar background as well. So what did I kind of do to shift this? And I will say this happened within the last couple years in my kind of development in the health and wellness space. And it's the principle of shine. So what this principle of shine is it is essentially a way to celebrate yourself, a way to celebrate a success, a way to celebrate yourself and a success. And when it occurs, it's very, 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 very important that it occurs immediately when something happens. So let's say you're trying to create a new behavior of having better self-talk. Let's say that you're in a workout and you're trying to hold a plank for 30 seconds. Let's say the most brutal time on the clock is moving so slow, right? You're like, oh my gosh, you hit 15 seconds, you hit 20 seconds, and then at 22, your body crumbles, and then you're there. And you got two options. You got one, the shame devil on your shoulder saying, you're not good enough. Why'd you quit 8 seconds beforehand? Or you have the shine principle on the other side that's now saying, dude, you just did a plank for 22 seconds. That was awesome. And you give yourself a real life or a hypothetical high five, pat on the back for what you had just done. The two brain reactions are going to be drastically different. One brain reaction, like we talked about before, is stress, cortisol, and all those bad things. The other one is going to be the dopamine hit, the adrenaline, and all those good factors that are going to help you perform better and also reduce all those negative emotions and physiological effects. So again, principle of shine. I want to talk. I learned it from psychologist BJ Fogg. And really it's, again, like what I was talking about before, it's about celebration. It's about celebrating your wins, about celebrating a different change of thought. It's about celebrating anything that you can kind of think of to where you can bring yourself up and help build yourself up by giving yourself that release when you need it and when you do something that you're trying to do along the way. So for shine to work, a couple things really need to be true. You need to be taking part in that behavior or habit that you might want to start implementing. So maybe like I said, it's a 30-second plank. Maybe it's you want to do a new workout routine. You want a nutrition program that you're going to follow. You're going to read. You're going to journal. Any of those things. And this typically is going to come off as a really, really small or tiny kind of behavior change at first. So for me, when I first started really implementing this, it was, I want to start working through reading on a daily basis. But my goal was to read one page out of a book. It wasn't to read for 20, 30 minutes. It wasn't to read in a chapter. It was to read one page. So at night, I was like, hey, if I read one page, I'm going to give myself that hypothetical or like real life high five and be like, hey, I just did it. I did the thing I wanted to do. And I'm going to get that dopamine hit. All those good brain chemicals are going to come out to life from that happening. And what you're going to do is you're going to celebrate again, like I said, immediately or even during the action. So, one thing I've actually been doing too is in training sessions, I've been doing the same thing. So if I go out and I do a movement that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know I was going to be able to do that. Or even in the middle, I'm like, hey, I've been running more. So now when I run and I pass like a stop sign, I'll like high five the stop sign. Imagine the stop signs like give me some daps and some love as I run by. It's really odd, but what it does, it's releasing that dopamine, that celebration is happening. So I actually had a really good we'll call like practice, or somebody that was telling me about the way that they had incorporated it before. And it's a woman that has completed a bunch of Ironmans in her life, and Mia can probably attest to this after completing her half Ironman. But basically, along the last part of the race, where she's running the marathon at the end, the best piece of advice that she had gotten was, I'm going to just listen to the people cheering for me and like embrace that and like enjoy that, because the end of the marathon, a 14 or 15 hour race, whatever it kind of takes, and like all those people are just cheering for you in like this tunnel, and you could like sit there and just like really really soak in that feeling. And I would love, maybe after the chat we'll have Mia kind of talk about those things as well. I'm sure it's a pretty unreal feeling. So what I want to do now is I want somebody who's in the group, and feel free, we can kind of do this on the spot, to unmute, and then we're going to go into a habit or a practice that you've been trying to incorporate into your life that's been a bit of a challenge. And then we can talk about how we kind of want to tackle that moving forward, and we can kind of do this live. So if somebody's feeling brave that's live in here, go ahead and hit it. We'll do first one to tee off. Cool. That's good. Yeah. Not everybody jump at once. I'm like the teacher who's like waiting now, just like put out a prompt and it's like, somebody raise their hand. Cool. All right. Oh, sweet. Chat box. I should have said that. We could type it in there too. Okay. No, Mike, I appreciate it. Oh, Ricky, you got one too? We can do two. You want to go first? You want me to go with Mike's first?
You can go first.
Okay. All right, real quick, Mike. So Mike said that challenges have been eating well or good eating habits, and you're doing yourself recently, but you keep telling yourself you can do it. So it sounds like you're actually kind of practicing that already. That you're practicing a kind of positive self-talk or discipline, and trying to make sure that you're giving yourself the tools, at least from the mental health standpoint, to be able to push that forward. So rewarding yourself. Oh yeah. Okay, sweet. So you're saying, yes, that's the case. And you've been rewarding yourself on the weekends. I want to take that a step further. And I want to say, what are you doing? And I know you're going to have to type this out, so take your time, but what are you doing in the moment to reward yourself when you're eating well, if anything? And if there's nothing, that's okay. But what I would challenge you to do is I would challenge you to start rewarding yourself in the moment. So let's say you have a really good meal. You're going to be like, boom, hell yeah. Like either you could send a message to a friend or somebody in the support network. You could text me if you want. You could send a message to somebody else. You could give yourself like a legitimately, it's crazy, like even just like clapping your hands together and be like, hell yeah, or like doing one of these like victory laps around your living room or kitchen. You'd be amazed how much it does to kind of your spirit, and just kind of your headspace as well. So I don't know if you want to type if you've been doing anything in the moment or not. Oh, never thought of that. Yes, telling your partner how you're eating every day and complimenting me is the best. Yeah, totally. I totally agree. So I'm going to challenge you to try and figure out a way to do it in the moment, and try and to really give yourself that kind of, we'll call shine principle, over the course of your, we'll call that like nutrition, good nutrition or good eating kind of protocols that you've been trying to implement. Ricky or Allie, are you guys wanting to do one too? Let's do one.
Yeah, so something that I struggle with is like things or worrying about things that are completely out of my control. So what I've been doing is just more focusing on like the present moment and the things that are in my control at that very moment, but the things that are important to control, rather than completely out of my hands. And I've been just more cognizant of that, especially since I, struggle. That's one of my biggest struggles. Because I do try and control everything as far as like environment goes. Other things as well. So I've just, I guess, to challenge myself, I've been just very aware of this issue, but I've also been trying to, um I guess, what's the word, help myself by, saying, hey, everything's fine at this present moment. Let me focus on that instead of like worrying about what's next, or, what happens if this, goes wrong, or things like that. So I guess just being more present, like in the moment, and focusing on the things that are okay right now. So yeah, I think to me that's helpful. That's been helpful.
Yeah, so I'm curious, as far as like when you're having this internal dialogue of like, hey, you have this, you're trying to be present in the moment, and let's say like you execute well on that. You're like, hey, I could get wrapped up around what I can't control, or I could be more present in the moment and like think and lean into what I can control and how that kind of affects me. After that occurs and you have that kind of decision gate and you decide to go the right way, how do you reward yourself? Or do you?
Um, no, I don't think there I don't think there is a reward stage for me. I think it's just a matter of, um, hey, nothing bad happened. So to me, that's a reward. Like I'm celebrating the fact that, okay, I got past this moment where I could have panicked and been really anxious, but instead I decided to, realize that everything's all right, and nothing bad happened, and I'm okay. So to me, in itself, is a reward. But as far as rewarding myself, I don't think I do that at all. So I probably should, but
Yeah, so I'll challenge you like just for the next like week, if you're hit with something like that, to like think about a way that you can reward yourself. Like again, it's got to be like immediately right there in the moment and give yourself that positive reinforcement of what you're doing. Like think about, I think like treat training your dog is like the greatest like analogy ever, right? So my dog Nala, I'm sure you guys kind of have seen her around. She's incredibly food motivated. So when I was first trying to teach her to walk with me on a hike, what I would do is I would took her off the leash, which Californians were got really mad at me for that, but I did it anyway. I would let her kind of roam. I would let her kind of go off and like sniff around and kind of do her thing. And what I would do is I would call her back, and whenever she came back to me, I would give her a treat. Boom. What is that? That is exactly what the we'll call shine principle is, right? It's you have done an action, you're doing something. The behavior was that I didn't want my dog to run off on me in the middle of the trail. So first off, I showed her I had a bag of treats in my pocket. And then secondly, whenever she came back, I gave her one to positively reinforce that behavior. So now whenever we go hiking, I can just call her and she's going to come back, which whether I have a treat in my pocket or not. And that's really where we want to get to. We want to get to the point where we don't even need to positively reinforce the behavior and it just becomes part of us because we've been able to build that in. And that's like, you're just a treat hound all the time, I guess is the analogy that I'm going to use.
You said I have to have a bag of treats around for her after that
Yeah,
analogy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's what I'm getting from that.
Allie, I'm not calling you a dog in any
No, no,
way,
I
shape, or
like
form.
it. I like it. I love treats, so I mean,
Good, good,
that
good, good.
works.
Okay, so real quick, so moral of the story, in kind of general, and what I'm talking about here is that shame and negative belief in self-talk will really put yourself in a mind state of fight or flight, and your internal words can become your external reality really quick. So if you're saying I can't do this, I'm incapable, or whatever kind of that negative thought or feeling is going to be, it's typically going to be what ends up resonating and coming out in your day-to-day life. So a simple way to break down that cycle is to start using that shine principle. Celebrate yourself, give yourself that success, celebrate that success in the moment. And even afterwards, give yourself some grace, do your best and realize that, health and wellness is a lifelong game, And that's kind of what that deep health principle is all about. So does anybody have like any blaring questions or anything like that about what we kind of chatted about? I know this is pretty high level. And remember, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, but I'm ready, willing, and able to accept any questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability at this point.
I think my only question is, so what I find kind of challenging is I guess when, I guess I am feeling, anxious or, whatever, which is very often, I just lose all motivation. Like, I'm a mom, so like all my effort and time goes into that. So I try and make time for myself. But it's very few and far between, which is also probably an issue. But I think yes. My question is, I guess, how do I combat the low motivation, and okay, Gabriel, hang on. How can I use that low motivation and, to my ability and, get through the workouts and things like that? Because that's been a really big hurdle as of late. So if you have any advice for that, that'd be great.
Yeah, Allie, what I don't want to do is I don't want to act like I know the stresses and struggles of being a parent, because I have a dog and a wife and no kids. So what I do want to tell you though is that from all the content that I've read and digested in this specific space, talks about really breaking down what you're going to deem success as into what that tiny action is. So let's say your big goal is to have this really, really robust workout and eating routine, or training routine and nutrition routine, right? But small scale on a day-to-day basis, you have moved that goal to from being this crazy, crazy thing to being like, I'm going to do at minimum every single day, I'm going to do the warm up that was written for me today. And now when you hit that warm up, whenever that does happen, you're able to then celebrate the fact that you've done that. And even if it took, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, like you're still giving yourself that like feel good of making that occur. And you've set that goal to be so tiny that then you can build on that and compound over time. So again, going back to like my example of when I used to read or trying to build my reading habit, if I finished the one page of a book, that was like minimum effective dose. But if I went above that, I was like, oh yeah, dude, I'm crushing it. And that was like the best part, right? Is like if you hit the minimum and you go above that, you feel like even better. You're like, dude, I got told to hold a 30-second plank and I did it for 4 minutes. I'm a badass. But if you're setting this bar super, super high and you're like, hey, I have to meet this for it to be the minimum effective dose, then that's what's going to end up making your motivation start to wane, because then you're not hitting that and you're feeling like you're not accomplishing where you want to be. So I would challenge you on days where you feel that way to just commit to doing the warm up, or maybe to a stretch before bed, whatever your minimum effective dose becomes. And we can totally chat about it more now or even later if you want to. That's what I would challenge you to kind of think about.
Yeah, no, that's a great, that's a great idea, and I'm definitely gonna, take that into consideration. The only issue is that it's like, I just feel like I cheat myself if I don't do the workout, and I feel incomplete. And so, me and Ricky, laugh about it sometimes because I like physically, mentally cannot not do it. Like it just in my mind, my day isn't finished until like I complete the work. I mean, which is a good thing, right? I just like, I'm just trying to get this motivation that I had back, So I think that's, the only thing. I love the workouts. It's just, my motivation has been waning a little bit lately, but I got it. I can
Yeah, no,
find
and
motivation.
I actually, anybody else who feels like they're in a similar way, please feel free to chime in. This is kind of what these group calls are about. Like I am not somebody who that's foreign to. Like I wake up and I'm not motivated some days as well. That happens to me too. How do the rest of you guys kind of combat that? I'd love to hear from you guys.
I think one thing that like I like to do is have something to look forward to in a workout. Like when we were training for the race, like with the Ironman, we would have 4 hour rides and that I dreaded it. Like for day, like I would wake up on Monday dreading my Saturday ride from like the moment I got up. But like one thing I knew I could look forward to on those rides was I got to eat a Cliff Bar every hour, and I love Cliff Bars, and I don't normally eat them, but that was like my motivation to do it. And then like if I'm working out at home and maybe I'm lifting weights, it's like, okay, I have a special playlist that I only listen to when I work out. So just having little things like that that like make you look forward to it because you don't get to typically do it. That's always been something that's like worked for me.
Excellent advice.
What about you, TJ, Michael? You guys, or Coop, you guys have anything else to add or anything like that?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's actually really good advice. I've actually seen that a lot, like for people like walking on the treadmill, they'll put on like a certain show that they'll only watch when walking. So that's kind of like their motivation to get on the treadmill. It's like, well, I get to continue, the story or listen to the audiobook that I like put on when I'm working out. Things like that. So I agree with that. I think it's really good advice. I think my I guess question that I have is I feel like I'm more negatively I respond like almost like more effectively to like negative reinforcement than like positive reinforcement. And I feel like that's probably just being an academy person. I feel like that's kind of what we were like, that's what's thrown at us. If you don't do something, then you're gonna get XYZ. Like that's gonna be the repercussion. Do you have any advice on how to like change that mindset so that this, I don't know, this shine like aspect or method can be like more effective?
Yeah, it's a really tough question. I don't know if I have a perfect answer for you, TJ. What I will say is that when again, my upbringing, I know I kind of glanced over it, but very similar to that, being the son of a warrant officer in the Coast Guard as well. So I will say that like uh very similar like household feel to what we kind of had at the academy. There was like it was, you know, uh do this or this happens. It was very much so like, here are your options and here's kind of the consequences for your actions. What I will say is something that I find really, really helpful is just like realizing like why you're doing what you're doing in the first place, I think is a really, really important thing to kind of ask yourself. And for me, a lot of that kind of shift occurred when I decided that I want to live as long as I can on this earth, doing stuff that I enjoy with people that I love. And that is like the thing that drives me the most. So let's say like if I don't move today, I might feel like shit about it and whatever that kind of ends up being. But at the end of the day, that's not going to take away from that goal that much. So the negative kind of reinforcement of like, hey, if you don't work out, then you're not going to reach your goal or whatever your, I guess, tangible kind of carrot is that you're holding, is finding that thing that like really is. And honestly, it could be something as simple as, a vanity driven goal, a number, something like that. But I find that it's really, really helpful if you can dial in something that is like almost like a guiding star. My buddy actually started this really interesting principle, and all the nautical people will kind of understand the concept of true north. And I'm actually sporting one of his hats right now. Shout out to Brady. But it's like, what is your guiding kind of principle? The thing that you're like looking to try and strive to all the time, and you may end up veering off course. But at the end of the day, you're always making kind of micro adjustments to kind of get yourself there. So think about like your way to have that be your motivating principle versus being motivated from a place of like lack or a place of negativity, I think is a way that I would start. So I would kind of flip it back around on you and ask you the question of what your motivation is. And then we could kind of dive into that. So you can feel free to answer now, or you don't have to if you don't want to, TJ.
I think I need to think on that one a little bit.
Yeah, no worries. Coop, do you have anything, buddy?
The oddly enough, the story you told about about your dog and having that treat and how that kind of relates to the shine part of it was something beneficial to me. Also have a dog. Also found out that when training her, she responded to positive reinforcement way better than she did negative reinforcement. So just kind of thinking about how my life mirrors that, or I mean, kind of like TJ was mentioning, like we are used to like if I don't do this today, I'm going to take this away. And how that will relate to, okay, well, I did this today, so let's reward myself. So I've just kind of been thinking about that. I appreciated the reference.
Yeah, I challenge anybody, and especially the dads out there. So Ricky and Coop, I know you guys are kind of live on, but like think about the difference in the way that your, son or daughter react when they do something and you like cheer them on versus when they do something and then you like berate, or I don't want to say berate, maybe you don't berate your kids, but and you react in like a negative manner, and just like their mannerisms, their expressions, their mood, all of those things, just kind of objectively like look at that and be like, okay, this is what you're doing to yourself. Because again, that the internal voice is happening regardless, right? And just being able to kind of understand and consciously, like, I've actually started to think about like we'll call the devil on the one shoulder and the angel on the other. We'll like kind of just break it down to that for a second. I've been trying to like personify the devil on the one shoulder to be like, I don't know, like the nerd in the back of the room. That's like the guy who's just chirping me, who's like not going anywhere and not doing anything. And he's the guy that I wouldn't take criticism or critique from, because I wouldn't take advice from them either. And then the angel on the other shoulder is the person that's like giving me like hey dude, you got it. Like that's just somebody that you want in your corner. That's somebody that you would rely on to field a phone call if you were looking for a word of advice or wisdom or something like that. So I've almost tried to personify the voice a little bit, and maybe that sounds like I'm insane and talk to myself, but maybe somebody could give that a shot as well.
Yeah, one other thing I kind of wanted to talk about with like the motivation thing is someone once said it to me and like it's kind of always stuck with me, but you don't have to do this. Like you get to do this. This is a privilege to be able to move your body in whatever way that you're talking about, whether it be, mobility, just getting a warm up in, getting a full workout in, whatever it is that you want to do. Like no one's sitting there telling you that you have to do it. Like it is an absolute privilege that we get to wake up every day and move our bodies like this. So just kind of thinking about it that way, like not taking it for granted. But even if you get that like slightest little bit of movement in, like at the end of the day, like you had the opportunity to do it and you capitalized on it, and like that's going to get you to the finish line. Just showing up little by little every single day. Another thing is like I always say line them up, knock them down. Like Blaze and I just started training for High Rocks and we were talking about it today. Like sometimes the workouts will have like 100 burpees and you can't look at it as like 100. You have to look at it as like one burpee at a time. So like every rep you just line them up, knock them down, and that's just like that mindset helps me, I feel like, go that much further, because if you think about it as one chunk, like one big number, it's going to feel so much more daunting than just one little step at a time.
Totally. That's awesome advice. Cool, you guys. Does anybody else have anything big questions wise? Other than that, I think I'm pretty good. I'm talked out. I've talked enough. So if somebody else wants to talk, you can.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it tonight. Wonderful talk.
Cool. All right. Well, without further ado, thank you all for joining today. We're going to post the link up so you'll have it at the end of the day, and we'll make sure everybody's got access. But again, barbecue on the 28th, if you're willing to come down. It'll be mayhem, but it'll be mayhem of the best type. And we'll be working in that new barbecue that we've got in the backyard. So it'll be super cool to work that in with you guys. So let me know if you guys have any questions. And hopefully we can hop on some calls this week. I know Mia's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to catching up with you guys after a little week of vacay-ish. So see you guys.
Thanks. Have a good night, everybody.